Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked around a crowded room, felt the buzz of 1,000 conversations, and still sensed that emptiness inside? Have you ever caught yourself surrounded by faces you barely know, laughter that barely reaches your ears, and realized you're more alone than ever? We live in a world that measures worth by the number of hands you shake or the list of names on your phone. But here's the truth that people rarely talk about. A man who stands with no friends or just a small handful of true believers can be the most secure man in the room. Why? Because he's not swayed by the opinions of strangers. He's not pulled in 15 different directions by acquaintances who don't really see him. He knows who he is, and he knows that true friendship is never about numbers. So if you've ever felt uneasy about the size of your circle, if you've ever wondered why your phone doesn't light up with notifications every 5 seconds, I want you to lean in. I'm here to tell you that you might just be more secure than you think. I can see it in your eyes. Some of you might be questioning it right now. So society has trained us believe that success means popularity, that you have to know people to get places. And that's why some folks spend their entire lives collecting relationships like trophies. They clutter up their social media with pictures of people they only met once. They chase after acceptance like it's the ticket to happiness. But deep down, you know the truth. It's possible to have 1,000 friendly faces around you and still feel utterly alone. It's possible to gather crowds, but never find real conversation, real understanding. And in that chase for more, you lose the core of who you are. You lose the ability to stand firm in your convictions because you're too busy trying to please everyone else. You lose the chance to truly know yourself because you never give yourself a moment of real solitude. Let's get something clear. I'm not here to knock the value of friends. True friends are a priceless treasure. But it's not about the quantity. It's the quality that matters. A big crowd can make you feel important for a day, but a small circle of loyal allies can empower you for a lifetime. And there's a simple yet powerful reason behind that. Real relationships require real work, real listening, real sacrifice. You can't expect to maintain that level of depth with 50 people. You can't pour your soul out to 100 folks and expect them all to have your back. Life doesn't work that way, and you know it. We're talking about a relationship that challenges you, that forces you to grow, that holds you accountable. You don't need an army for that. You need a small, dedicated squad. And that's why a man with no friends or a man with a tiny circle can move through life with conviction, with clarity, and yes, with security. He's not weighed down by the demands of false connections. He's free to focus on what truly counts, free to develop himself, free to dedicate his energy to the people and pursuits that align with his purpose. Right now, you might be feeling a spark of recognition, maybe even relief, because maybe you've walked through life thinking something was wrong with you for not having a line of people outside your door. Maybe you felt less than because you weren't the life of every party. I'm here to tell you, you are enough. You don't have to apologize for the size of your circle. You don't have to prove yourself by the number of invites you receive. You only have to live your truth and honor the relationships that truly matter. That's what we're going to dive into tonight. I want you to feel the power of that message. And I want you to walk away with a renewed sense of clarity, a renewed sense of purpose, and a renewed sense of who you are at your core. Because a man who can stand tall in solitude, or with just a few by his side, is a man who truly owns his life. Let's talk about the first crucial point. A small circle isn't just about weeding out superficial relationships. It's about a deeper fortress of trust that shields your dreams, your vulnerabilities, and your victories. We'll explore why that fortress matters, how you can build it, and how to tell if it's cracking under the weight of people who don't belong. Then we'll shift gears to understand how solitude can be your greatest teacher, your silent coach, the place where you discover your truest, most unshakable self. Because the goal here isn't to walk alone forever. The goal is to walk with the right people by your side and to be completely at peace even when no one's there. Now, let's dive in. First, let's get this out in the open. There's a mighty power in being selective. Too often, we confuse having connections with having actual friends. We gather phone numbers, rack up followers on social media, and think we're building something real. But when it comes down to it, do these people know who you really are? Deep down, do they care about your struggles as much as they cheer for your successes? If you open your eyes, you might see a gap between the surface, level attention, and real, genuine support. When you keep your circle small, you weed out the opportunists, the fair weather friends, the ones who only show up when it's convenient. You become the guardian of your own space. And in that guardian role, you learn how to protect your peace, how to protect your energy, and how to protect your future. This is important because every relationship you have requires energy. Think about it like a bank account. Every conversation, every shared moment, every interaction, those withdrawals add up. If you invest in too many shallow relationships, you deplete your emotional reserves. You can't give quality time to all those acquaintances. You can't be there for everyone. And you certainly won't have enough emotional bandwidth for yourself. But when your circle is small, you give your best to those who actually deserve it. You cultivate deeper connections that pay dividends in loyalty, in understanding, in shared growth. And that's the ultimate wealth, because in times of crisis, in times of triumph, in times of confusion, you've got a handful of people who actually know your soul. Let's be real. Some of us cling to broad networks because we're afraid of rejection. We're terrified that if we ever do a deep clean of our contact list, we'll find ourselves lonely. So we keep everyone around, hoping we'll never feel that sting of solitude. But the irony is that the more you cling to empty relationships, the lonelier you become. You're left with hollow interactions that don't nourish your spirit. You pretend to have a full social calendar, but inside, you're starving for genuine connection. That's the great tragedy. We spend so much time trying to avoid rejection from others that we forget we might be rejecting ourselves. We ignore our own need for meaningful bonds, and we settle for half-baked relationships instead. When you decide to have a small circle, You learn a powerful lesson about self-worth. You declare to the world, I'm worth genuine bonds. I'm worth authenticity. By filtering out the noise, you stand confidently in your own truth. And something magical happens. You start attracting the right people. The ones who resonate with your values. The ones who challenge you to improve. The ones who celebrate your victories and also lift you when you stumble. Yes, you might lose a few names from your contact list, but you gain the kind of friendship that fuels your spirit instead of draining it. It's a trade-off worth making. Think of it like building a fortress with very few gates. You don't let just anyone walk into your sacred space. That place is reserved for those who've earned the privilege. That place is for the people who've shown their loyalty, who've proven that they're not just there for the show. And with that fortress, you sleep easier at night. You know that your secrets are safe, your dreams are protected, and your energy is used wisely. Now imagine failing to grasp this. Imagine exhausting yourself with endless social obligations, forced smiles, shallow chats that end the moment you step out of the room. Over time, you lose touch with yourself. You never take a moment to reflect. You're always performing, always on stage, always scanning for who likes you and who doesn't. You become a prisoner of public opinion instead of the master of your own destiny. And one day, you wake up and realize you don't even know who you are anymore. That's the cost of refusing to create boundaries. That's the price you pay when you invite everyone in without discernment. So how do you know if your circle is too big or too shallow? How do you sense when your fortress has too many open doors? You feel it in your gut. You feel drained more often than inspired. You spend more time trying to please others than pleasing your own soul. You might even feel a pang of anxiety when you're not connected for a day or two. You wonder if someone's going to forget you if you don't pop up with a text or a like on their photo. The solutions is simple but not easy. Start by doing an honest audit of your relationships. Ask yourself, does this person genuinely care about me? Or is our connection just convenience? If your answer leans more toward convenience, it might be time to let go. It's not a cruel act. It's an act of self-love. You're freeing yourself and them from an empty charade. Then invest deeply in those who remain. Show up for them. Be real. And watch how your own sense of security expands. Here's the biggest takeaway. When you maintain a small, strong circle, you give yourself permission to stand in your truth without apology. You're no longer scattered and frantic, trying to be everything for everyone. You're grounded. You're clear. And in that clarity lies a powerful security that can't be bought, faked, or forced. That clarity becomes your shield against the chaos and chatter of a world that wants to pull you in a million directions. That clarity is your greatest asset. And once you have it, nobody can take it away. Now, let's shift gears to another vital aspect. Understanding the difference between isolation and solitude, and discovering how solitude can elevate your life rather than diminish it. It's easy to assume that a small circle means being lonely, but that assumption comes from a misunderstanding of what loneliness actually is. People think you're lonely if you don't have a crowd. But loneliness isn't about how many people are around you. It's about how connected you feel to yourself and the people who matter. You can feel painfully lonely in a room full of people, and you can feel utterly at peace in the quiet company of one or two souls, or even just your own company. Let's dig deeper. Solitude is a powerful teacher. It's that quiet moment when you shut the door, turn off the noise, and look inward. Some folks run from solitude because they're afraid of what they might find there. They'd rather drown themselves in social events, phone calls, endless online scrolling, just so they never have to face the silence. But here's the secret in that silence. You learn who you truly are. In that silence, you confront your fears, your hopes, your doubts, and your desires. You learn your weaknesses and your strengths in ways no conversation with another person can reveal. That's the difference between isolation and solitude. Isolation can feel forced, like you've been banished. Solitude is chosen. It's intentional. It's your personal sanctuary where you grow, reflect, and renew. I remember a time in my own life when I craved applause, validation, the warm glow of other people's approval. I surrounded myself with faces, but I still felt something was off. The more attention I got, the emptier I felt. One day, I realized that the noise was keeping me from hearing my own voice. I took a step back, spent more time alone, said no to events that didn't align with my purpose, let go of relationships that were built on convenience rather than authenticity. And in that newfound solitude, I found clarity. I figured out what I really wanted to accomplish, who I really wanted to be. I discovered that my why was never about pleasing everyone else. It was about fulfilling the purpose placed in my heart. And that purpose became clearer when I stripped away the excess. So does choosing solitude mean you push away everyone? Not at all. In fact, it makes you more attuned to real connection. When you have those quiet moments, you recognize the relationships that genuinely add to your life. You appreciate them more deeply. You become grateful for the rare individuals who truly get you. And in turn, you become more present, more engaged, more generous to them. Solitude gives you the emotional space to show up fully in the moments you do share with others. It's the space that fuels your creativity. It's the space that stokes your spiritual fire. It's the space that fosters self-respect. Because once you learn to enjoy your own company, you're no longer desperate to be surrounded by others just to fill a void. That's where you become powerful beyond measure. A person who loves their alone time is a person who can never really be manipulated by the fear of abandonment. They won't twist themselves into knots to keep people around. They won't accept disrespect because they're afraid to be left out. They walk into a room knowing that their sense of self doesn't hinge on whether others acknowledge them or not. That kind of confidence can move mountains. It sets the tone for how others treat you. It signals, I know my worth, and I'm not here to beg for your approval. And that, my friends, is the mark of true security. That's the difference between existing in the world and truly owning your place in it. If you ignore solitude, if you never pause long enough to hear your own breath, life becomes a relentless chase. You chase after compliments, likes, followers, acquaintances, but you're running on empty And sooner or later, you crash. You wonder why you feel so drained, so unsure, so small. It's because your identity got tangled up in the noise. You forgot to build a home within yourself. And no matter how many people you surround yourself with, if you haven't made peace with who you are, you'll always be searching for something outside that can only be found inside. So what can you do? Start by scheduling moments of quiet. Maybe you go for a walk without your phone. Maybe you sit in your living room and watch the sun go down without music or TV. Let your mind wander. Let your thoughts come. You might be uncomfortable at first, but stick with it. Journal what you feel. Pay attention to what excites you, what scares you. Over time, you'll see patterns. You'll realize there's a wealth of wisdom in the silence. That's your intuition speaking. That's your spirit guiding you. And when you learn to trust that voice, you become unshakable. Suddenly, you're not worried about whether you're alone on a Friday night. You're not desperate to fill every weekend with social gatherings. You're content, you're centered, you're free. And that freedom radiates from you, attracting people who resonate with your authenticity. Now, take this lesson to heart. Solitude is the soil in which your dreams grow strong roots. Don't fear it, embrace it. Don't treat it like a punishment, treat it like a gift. Because in solitude, you cultivate the kind of self-reliance and clarity that no external praise can provide. And when you step back into the world, you do so with purpose, with passion, and with an unshakable sense of who you are. That's how you forge your own path. That's how you transform from a leaf blown around by the wind of popular opinion into a deeply rooted oak that stands firm in the storm. Now let's bring it all together. We've talked about building a small circle, a fortress of trust that keeps out the noise, that preserves your energy for the relationships that truly matter. We've explored how solitude, far from being a curse, is actually the sacred space where you discover yourself. And the main takeaway is this: a man with no friends or a very small circle is a man who isn't easily swayed by the whims of society. He has found a rhythm that resonates with his soul, and he's not looking for external approval to validate his existence. That's security at its finest. That's a way of living that offers depth, meaning, and power. Let's revisit why this is so important. You came here tonight maybe feeling a tug in your heart, a question in your mind. Am I enough if I'm not surrounded by a big crowd? The answer is yes. You are enough when you know yourself. You are enough when you can thrive in solitude. You are enough when your relationships are genuine instead of plentiful. Life has a funny way of convincing us that more is always better. More followers, more acquaintances, more events. But more is only better if it adds value to your life. Otherwise, it's just noise, and noise will never fill the quiet longing in your heart. Only meaningful connections and genuine self-understanding can do that. Remember the cost of neglecting these truths. If you choose to keep your circle large and shallow, you risk diluting your own essence. You risk allowing others to define you, to steer you away from your destiny. If you fear solitude and try to outrun it, you miss out on your own growth. You cheat yourself out of the wisdom, the clarity, and the inner peace that only come from spending time alone. In that scenario, you might be present in 100 places, but never truly be at home within yourself. And that's a recipe for constant anxiety, perpetual restlessness. It's a recipe for always feeling like something's missing, even if you can't quite name it. So what do you do next? You take action. You don't just listen to these words and say, "That's inspiring." You do something about it. First, do an honest audit of your circle. Look at the people in your life who genuinely understand you, who genuinely support you, who stick around when times get tough. Appreciate them, invest in them. Let them know how much they mean to you. Then, look at the relationships that feel superficial or transactional. Ask yourself if they're worth the mental and emotional cost. If not, step away gracefully. You can do it with respect without drama, but do it for yourself, because your energy is finite and you deserve to spend it where it counts. Then carve out time for solitude. Whether it's 5 minutes in the morning, half an hour at night, or a walk in the park with no phone, create a space where you can breathe and listen to yourself. You might be surprised by what bubbles up when you're not drowning in outside voices. Yes, the noise in your head might be loud at first, but stick with it. Over time, that noise becomes a conversation with your deeper self, a dialogue that can guide you to choices aligned with your real purpose. And that's where you find peace. That's where you find the unshakable foundation of security. This isn't about turning yourself into a hermit. It's about being the kind of person who can walk into any room, whether it's filled with 1,000 people or just one, and remain completely at ease because you know who you are. That's the ultimate freedom. You're not performing. You're not chasing. You're not begging for approval. You're simply you, standing on the bedrock of self-awareness and authenticity. And let me tell you that energy is magnetic. People who value genuine connections will be drawn to it. People who crave drama or superficiality will be repelled by it. That's how you naturally filter your circle. That's how you keep it real. Now, let's talk about hope. Hope is not just a wish. Hope is the belief that you have within you the power and the permission to create a life that resonates with your deepest values. When you embrace a smaller circle, you're placing hope in the idea that depth can triumph over breadth. When you seek out solitude, you're placing hope in the idea that understanding yourself can lead to your greatest breakthroughs. And that hope will drive you forward. It will fuel you on the days when you feel misunderstood, on the days when the world tells you to be someone you're not. Hope also unites us, because ironically, when you're secure enough to stand alone, you become better at standing with others. You're able to offer genuine support and empathy rather than a shallow presence. You're strong enough to hold someone else up because you've already held yourself up in moments of solitude. That's the kind of interconnectedness that heals communities, that bridges divides, that creates real solidarity. It starts with individuals who know themselves and can, therefore, extend a true helping hand to others. So what's my final call to you? Dare to be that man or that woman who isn't afraid of a small circle. Dare to be the person who can face a quiet room without flinching, who can spend time alone and emerge stronger, more focused, more passionate. Dare to be authentic in a world that worships surface appearances, because the world needs realness. The world needs people who are grounded in something deeper than likes and shares. The world needs you at your best, not you deluded by trying to cater to everyone else's preferences. If you take only one thing from this message, let it be this: security isn't found in the praise of the many, it's found in the embrace of the few, and in the solitude that teaches you to embrace yourself. You're powerful when you know who you are. You're free when you don't fear being alone. And you're unstoppable when you choose relationships that elevate you instead of simply populate your contact list. That's how you become a force to be reckoned with, a person of unwavering conviction. That's how you make your mark on the world in a way that resonates long after the crowds have dispersed. I want you, right here and right now, to feel that surge of resolve rising in your chest. I want you to realize that you deserve more than shallow connections, more than hollow applause. You deserve authenticity, loyalty, depth, first from yourself and then from the people you allow into your life. So make the decision. Decide to prune what doesn't serve you, to nurture what does, and to spend the precious currency of your time in ways that align with your purpose. That's how you become the most secure person in any room. Because your security won't depend on external validation. It'll grow out of your own clarity, your own choices, your own sense of worth. Take this energy with you and act. Act by looking inward. Act by looking around. Act by embracing that small circle, that solitude, that strength that comes from knowing who you are. And as you do, I promise you'll feel lighter. You'll walk taller. You'll speak with a conviction that can't be faked. People may question you. They may doubt you. They may try to pull you back into the crowd. But you'll be able to smile, shake your head, and keep moving forward. Because you'll know deep down that a man with no friends or a very small circle, when chosen wisely, is indeed a very, very secure man. And that, my friends, is worth every ounce of solitude, every tough decision, every moment of self-reflection. That is worth more than 1,000 shallow connections. That is the freedom of truly owning your life. So walk out of here with a clear mission. Refuse to measure your value by how many people surround you. Refuse to let social expectations determine your relationships. Refuse to be a pawn in a popularity contest that leads nowhere. Instead, be the builder of your own fortress, the guardian of your own soul, and the master of your own solitude. Because once you do that, once you stand firm in your own truth, the rest of your life opens up in ways you never imagined. You walk with grace, you speak with power, you love with depth, and you live with purpose. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a gift both to yourself and to the world around you. Embrace it, cherish it, and let it guide you to the very best version of who you're meant to be. Keep that flame alive and watch as you become truly unbreakable.